Hello folks, I'm Modulus. I'm back again for another update on the CVN-65 USS Enterprise at 1/350 scale from Mini Hobby Models. So since my update 2 weeks ago, I have closed up the hangar bay, glued everything and started working on the deck. So you can see that I have already glued the 3 pieces of decks onto the main hull, and then okay, the the way I did it is I have painted the hull separately before it was attached. So I did a primer, then the German gray on 3 separate pieces, and then I started masking all these catwalks all the way. Then I sprayed the Mr. Colors number 35, which is actually the hull color. So okay, so painting the catwalks, I had to mask back the entire deck. Then once that was done, I started again on all the fittings, tried to fit the 3 decks. And of course, when it comes to gluing down the decks, yeah, there was a lot of hiccups again. So but anyway, I did manage to glue all the 3 decks, and the way I did it is you can see that there was a big gap line here, about a 1mm gap. So I filled it with the plastic card, puttied and sanded it off. So I think right now the surface seems to be quite smooth. Of course, if I visually, you will not be able to see. It looks pretty flat, but if I touch it, this middle deck here is actually slightly higher. So by touching, you can actually feel it. And for the middle deck and the last stern deck here, the stern deck is slightly higher. So for this side, there was like a point, I don't know, 0.4, 0.3 gap, because I did fill it with a 0.3 plastic card. Then I puttied this. So I know this looks okay, it feels smooth, but when I do the painting again on this area, I'm pretty sure I might have to redo maybe a second time. There definitely will be a second time of sanding again, because right now I cannot see. I mean, when I feel it, it feels okay, but if I paint it, maybe there's some visual lines. So, you know, I don't think I can get it in one go. So this is my first sanding. So maybe later there might be a second one. So after I have attached the 3 decks, let me just show you here how I did it, because I used a slow drying super glue, about 20 seconds. So I started with the front piece, then the centerpiece, and for the centerpiece I had to, okay, let me just flip this entire ship upside down to show you that, okay, the moment I stick the middle deck, I have to flip it around and fit all these pieces here, because these pieces are not really easy to fit. In fact, you have to actually push this hull a little bit towards the inner side so that this piece will fit. So because it goes in between this hull and the decks, this catwalk here, so it had to be fit in, and I have not cleaned this up yet, so there are some you know, smearings, super glue smearings, and of course there are some little bit of gaps here and there, and I think this, especially this area here, there is quite a gap, so I might have to fill that up. And basically, yeah, looks like that. So the point of when, let me just flip this back upright again. So the main point is to get the stern deck and the front deck aligned, and I wanted it to be aligned at the front here. So this part here is actually almost flush, but of course there is little bit of a seam line there, which I will have to clean up. So when you align this side, the gap appears. Of course, if I push this back to get this gap closer, then there will be a step over here. So I think it is better to get this part aligned. Just leave the gap there, because this, no matter what, this gap will be there and it will have to be cleaned up. And then the difficult part was to get this back piece exactly, because there are some ribs down here which needs to fit to the main hull. So yeah, that was quite a difficult thing to do. And before I had the decks attached, I did do some photo etch work around here, because I know these will be difficult to work with once the deck is on, because this deck is slightly on the outside of the hull. So, and then I did stick this piece, but unfortunately this piece was I did touch it too many times and it did come off once, and I had to glue it back. So and that yellow color piece is a photo etch, and I did attach all these because I know it's gonna be difficult to fit in all these things before the deck is if after the deck is attached. So there are still a lot of photo etch things to go on here, but I think the rest will be okay. I will have room to play with. So these things were attached, and this I would definitely advise you to attach this photo etch first, because this photo etch on this sponson here is actually almost in underneath the catwalk. So if you do this after the deck is attached, I think I mean, for me it's definitely going to be difficult. So I did all these areas where it's going to be difficult to touch the photo etch. And then okay, let me just turn this ship around. So there is another railing on the other side of this sponson here. So this railing will also definitely have to be attached first. Otherwise, it's gonna be really challenging to attach once this deck is attached. So that's I think that's what I have done. And for these catwalks here, the masking took a little bit of time, but it's not really unmanageable. It is possible, but a lot of work, and even escaping all these square things here. So a lot of cutting up the masking tapes to cover up the sidewalk, the catwalk's deck. And then over here, this is the gap that I was talking about. So it just so I think this one got away from me. I did not see this when I was super gluing everything. So now that it has hardened, I cannot push this any further. So maybe I have to fill in a card into this gap there. So once this is, you know, I paint this, and the way I'm gonna paint this area is I'm not gonna paint the entire deck again. So I'll probably just mask certain areas, escape it, and then paint this. And I hope there won't be too much difference in the shades of this German gray, because you know, when when you mix a new bottle, sometimes the color becomes a bit different. And I've used up the first bottle of the paint for the deck, so it's gonna be a new bottle. So depends on how much thinner I mix. But then again, the deck, if I do a heavy weathering, I think it's gonna be okay, because I'm gonna make it really dirty anyway. So the different shades of the German gray maybe might not be so noticeable. So yeah, lots of super glue smearing. I think I'll have to clean this up. And okay, so there's something I would like to point out on this once the deck is attached, which is it's something that which I was actually expecting. So on all these door wells here, there is quite a big there is a step, and there's also a gap. And based on the real ship, it actually doesn't look like this. In fact, this surface is actually flush, and there is a very thin line with this deck's color. So to flush this out, you know, it's gonna be quite difficult, because there's quite a big step over there. So either I'm gonna be sanding all these putty sanding, or maybe stick one piece of plastic card. So I have not decided which way I'm gonna go. So that's the kind of gap you're gonna get. And Okay, so for all these elevator decks, I started looking into the elevator decks, and I found out that for this Edwards photo edge, I think it's really meant for the Tamiya kit, which I think this is elevator number 1. And elevator number 1 is actually a raised position, because the Tamiya kit has this deck molded to the deck. But unfortunately, my mini hobby model kit is not. It is a separate piece of deck. So for the rest of the decks, they do provide a lot of these photo edge to go to these areas here. That is why the deck have to be, lowered in a lowered position. So, but for elevator deck number 1, they don't provide those pieces of photo edge here. So if I put this in a lower position, over here is gonna be just bare. So maybe I will raise this up, and I think this one, the fit is not too bad. I did try to sand off a bit here and on the deck itself, so I might raise this up, and then that will also eliminate that problem about cleaning up this gap here, because if I raise the deck, that place will be covered anyway, so I don't have to clean up that area. But for the rest of the door wells here, it's gonna be really tough to clean the door wells. So this one has a lot of super glue smearing. So I'll have to clean this up, repaint it, and maybe put like a 0.5 beam at the edge here and paint it in the deck color. So I think that's what I will have to do for the rest of the elevator decks. So I think that's I think that should cover most of my updates. And remember this piece of 2mm plastic that I stick here. For some reason, when I attach the deck, this gap appeared. When I did a dry fit, it did not. So I guess all these dry fitting on all these big parts are not, it's not very useful, because when you actually glue it, a lot of other thing happens. So, but there will be a photo edge covering this area. I'm not sure if I need to fill this gap up. So this is what I have been doing, and I think you can see I've taken out all these maskings. Okay, by the way, in my previous chapter, or maybe, I don't know, 2 chapters ago, I did mention I put a plastic card on this area which I mentioned was open. But I found out that thing, the place where I closed it up, was actually blocking this catwalk, was actually blocking it. So I had to shave it off again. And yeah, so maybe my what I thought was actually wrong. So yeah, a lot of these kind of unexpected things did happen. So what I'm talking about is that area there. So you can see that there is there's that L shape thing there. So I did cut it off a bit, and I did also cut off on the catwalk. Otherwise it will be too the gap between the middle deck will be really huge. I think it was like almost 2 millimeter. And so these ribs here, I have to do a lot of I did cut it out a lot because it did not fit. So but now, you know, I got it to fit. And these ribs, somehow it doesn't reach to the hull. I'm quite sure that these ribs are supposed to be touching the hull. So maybe there are a lot of these alignments which I think which is off, you know. But can't really do much about this kind of things because, you know, this kit is, a lot of things are not, it doesn't fit on this kit anyway. Maybe the Tamiya kit has a better fit, but I have to work with these mini hobby models. So after this I will start to clean up a lot of things, then start painting it back. Then I will start on the photo edge all along these hull and the deck areas. So I think this is gonna be it for my update this time. If you have any comments, you can let me know. And I hope this was helpful if you're building this kit. And as usual, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up, please share the video, and I'll be back for more. So until the next time, happy modeling and cheers for now. Goodbye.